Accusations of lies, leaks and hidden documents. On what was supposed to be Judgment Day, a former Channel 7 producer has taken to the stand after his bombshell claims reignited Bruce Lehrmann's defamation trial.
The surprise star witness.
Any nerves today, Taylor?
Former Channel 7 producer Taylor Auerbach heading for the doors of the federal court and then to the witness box.
Why did you decide to speak out now?
After his bombshell affidavits threw a spanner into Bruce Lehrmann's high-stakes defamation case against Network 10.
Are you confident winning the case?
Are you surprised by these new claims?
Auerbach was involved in securing an exclusive interview with Lehrmann on 7's Spotlight.
Bruce, you ready?
Let's light some fires.
Auerbach's claims that 7 reimbursed Lehrmann for sex workers and illicit drugs in its attempts to woo him, and that Lehrmann handed over confidential material from his aborted criminal trial to the network. 7 denies Auerbach's accounts, and Lehrmann has previously denied leaking documents. As for 10, they claim the allegations damaged Lehrmann's credibility.
Beware the man with nothing to lose.
Today, Auerbach told the court he believed a lawyer for 7 instructed him to delete his communications with Lehrmann, but he denied his motive in coming forward was to destroy his former colleagues. Questioned about a night out in Sydney with Lehrmann, Auerbach said,
"I had been appointed to be his babysitter, minder, looking after him, trying to build trust and some sort of relationship."
Auerbach said Lehrmann had bought cocaine and ordered sex workers, claiming he began texting his boss that
Bruce was on the warpath again. I think I used the words, "This is
The Professor of Law and Criminal Justice, Rick Sarre, has been following all the twists, all the turns. Professor, 10 claims that Taylor Auerbach's allegations damaged Lehrmann's credibility. Just how vital is his credibility to this case?
Well, his credibility is everything, because in submissions, finally, Channel 10 can say, well, if this later evidence once again damages his credibility and says that he might have been trifling with the truth in one instance, why is he not trifling with the truth in every instance? So everyone's credibility is on the line. Ultimately, the judge has to make a decision about which evidence he prefers.
Another possible outcome is that Mr Lehrmann is found to be in contempt of court. If that happens, what does that mean for him?
Well, I'm hoping that if there is going to be an allegation about contempt of court, it's not here muddying this particular judgment. And if it's going to be pursued, it's pursued long after the judgment is given. I would have thought he's okay, because what appears to be contempt, namely giving away some evidence that he had gleaned in relation to the criminal case, or allegedly, in some way he's in contempt of court by bringing it into these proceedings. One might have thought that might have been contemptuous. Ultimately, it's a matter for the judge, and ultimately it's a matter for a separate hearing, nothing to do with this particular outcome.
So all of this is quite sensational. It's very good news fare. Do you think any of it will actually make a difference to the case, though?
Look, I think ultimately, like every civil case such as this, the judge has to make a finding concerning whose evidence he believes. The defamation law is pretty straightforward. Mr Lehrmann has the benefit that he doesn't have to prove much. Ultimately, Channel 10 has to prove a defence, and they're trying to establish that by saying that he basically is not someone whose evidence can be trusted. Ultimately, it just comes down to factual matters, and in circumstances where there is a conflict in the evidence, the judge has to make a preference in relation to whom he believes. So the law is going to be pretty sound. I think ultimately all the characters that are emerging from it, unfortunately, have been sullied. We'll just have to wait and see what happens ultimately. And of course, you've got Channel 10, Channel 7 caught up in the milieu. That's going to be a long time in reflecting upon those adverse outcomes as well.
Rick, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, you go back to the original allegations, that trial gets aborted, then you have an investigation into the prosecution, and then there's fallout from that, and then you have this, and now in this defamation trial there's a last-minute witness saying all kinds of It's just, there's so much. It's incredible the way that this has spread. Have you, in your life, in your experience, ever seen a case like this?
Not something that's going on as long as there's 4.5 years now since the allegations were first made. And I suppose one thing that most of us are thinking is rather unusual and certainly sensational is that a person after the criminal case would come along and have the whole matter rehearsed once again in the civil courts. That's very, very unusual. So I think that we'll look back on this, and the law students will look back on this with some interest, I think, for the next half a dozen years.
Professor, we really appreciate your time.
Glad to be with you.